out on the world tourism map thanks to its snow-capped peaks and all. Pho culture is particularly special in its ancient monasteries. Therefore, this led the point of interest for explorers and travelers around the world. However, when looking at the map of international airlines, we see significant gaps. In Tibet, airplanes usually choose to fly into the area rather than directly over it. So what makes this spiritual land a concern for pilots and airlines? Is there anywhere in the world? Let's say just 5 minutes together to the complex and treacherous terrain. With an area of up to 1,228,400 square kilometers, Tibet accounts for more than 1/8 of China's total area. One of the prominent features of this region is its rugged terrain and high average elevation, over 4,500 meters. Therefore, it is also called the roof of the world for possessing snow-capped, the Arctic. This place is also called the third pole of the Earth because it has up to 46,000 rivers, accounting for 14.5% of the world, only after the Arctic and Antarctic. All have created a majestic landscape with the terrain. The most notable feature is Mount Everest. This is the world's highest mountain, located at an altitude is 8,849 meters, followed by K2 with a height of 8,611 meters. There are a total of 50. China's exceeds 7,200 meters, with a majority concentrated in Tibet. These are also natural walls that prevent the moist airflow from the Indian Ocean from advancing into the highland region, making this area have a dry and cold climate. Not only that, the mountains here also create increasing the risk of forming swirling air currents and air turbulence, causing difficulties. Especially strong and unpredictable winds also pose a potential danger. Moreover, the presence of many rivers and streams causes the sky to frequently be cloudy and this, reducing visibility and increasing the risk of accidents. Therefore, airlines choose to avoid the Tibetan region to ensure safety and operational efficiency. Because if the the terrain of the world's rooftop is not an ideal place for a crew to handle an emergency. Especially, this area is far from the oceans, so an emergency sea landing is also impossible. Another important factor that also needs to be mentioned is that, for the flight to take place as safely as possible, the aircraft must be at a certain altitude above the ground, which is typically around 10. But whenever there is an aviation incident, the aircraft needs to be at a maximum of 3,000. But the Tibetan region has an average altitude of up to 4,500 meters, along with many towering up. If the plane experiences engine failure, the pilot will not have enough time to come up with a solution and find a safe landing spot, while the plane will also descend faster upon landing, increasing the risk of cost. Moreover, in the high-altitude Qinghai-Tibet Plateau region, which stands several thousand meters above, but still much higher than the altitude in the air, which creates drag, causing the aircraft to move slower and consume more fuel. Additionally, in the thin atmosphere of the highlands, to achieve lift similar to other areas, the aircraft must have a higher speed or larger wing area, which consequently creates difficulties in aircraft design. Additionally, training pilots for such specialized missions is also very time-consuming and labor-intensive, while danger is always lurking. As in World War II, the Allied forces opened a hub airlift route to transport aid supplies. Machinists from India and arrived in Penang, China. A series of aircraft were used in this airlift hub, including 100 C-47 Skytrain transport aircraft, 10 C-53 Skytrooper transport aircraft, and 35, along with a series of other aircraft. From April 1942 to November 1945, 776,532 tons of goods were transported, but only 650,000 tons reached Tibet. That is because this air route must pass through an area with high mountains and deep gorges located between northern Myanmar and western China. This place has strong winds, severely disturbed air, and extremely harsh weather conditions. Not only that, but there is also a lack of infrastructure such as forward airfields and supply stations here, making rescue and support for distressed crews more difficult. In addition, the Japanese military also organized attacks on transport aircraft, causing further heavy losses. Therefore, in just 42 months, 594 planes crashed and 1,659 people died. That means an accident occurred every 2 days, turning this route into the deadliest aviation corridor in history. Nevertheless, with 650,000 tons of cargo and 33,400 people transported, it remained the largest airlift operation in history. That was a wartime story, but in peacetime, accidents still frequently occur in the Himalayas. Specifically, in 1992, Pakistan International Airlines Flight PK-286, departing from Jinnah International Airport in Karachi, crashed while preparing to land at Tribhuvan International Airport in Kathmandu, the capital of Nepal. All 167 passengers and crew on board perished. Despite no wind, rain, or storms at the time of the accident, the plane still crashed into a mountain while flying over the Himalayas. The main causes were limited visibility and the terrain warning system not activating in time due to the steep terrain. As mentioned, due to having the world's highest terrain, Tibet has a quite harsh and unpredictable climate. Therefore, commercial aircraft not designed for complex terrain face numerous difficulties and higher risks of accidents. The Earth's third pole has a very cold climate, especially in winter, with temperatures dropping below -40 degrees Celsius, even lower in some areas. The higher the altitude, the lower the temperature compared to the ground. Cold enough to cause icing on aircraft parts like wings and engines. This phenomenon has caused many incidents in aviation history because aircraft fuel can solidify. For example, in 2008, a flight from Beijing, China to London, England encountered a problem just before landing. The cause was believed to be ice accumulation in the fuel system. Specifically, the aircraft was operating at outside air temperatures ranging from -74 degrees Celsius to although the fuel did not freeze, the system was contaminated with a small amount of water, while it didn't affect much during the flight, as it neared landing at Heathrow Airport. The engines repeatedly failed to meet the thrust increase demands from the autopilot. The autopilot completely disconnected at an altitude of 46 meters, forcing the pilots to take manual and attempt to reduce drag to extend the landing flare. Although there were no casualties, the incident highlighted the dangers of cold weather to flights. Meanwhile, in Tibet, the climate is harsher and icing can occur frequently, compromising flight safety. Additionally, this area often experiences strong winds, especially vortex winds from the Himalayas. Strong and unstable winds can create severe turbulence zones, posing dangers to aircraft. Sudden changes in wind speed and direction can cause aircraft to lose control or even flip if pilots do not react promptly. In particular, the Tibetan plateau has complex, undulating mountains creating conditions for many strong winds that when flying over the Himalayas, aircraft may encounter continuous updrafts and downdrafts, with very strong intensity, leading to risks of losing altitude control, causing passenger discomfort or even danger. For airports located at high altitudes like in Tibet, aircraft require longer runways for takeoff. And strong winds can deflect flight paths or increase the risk of incidents during takeoff, landing. Moreover, the weather here can change very rapidly, from sunny to rain or snowstorms in a short time. This makes forecasting difficult and increases the risk of encountering sudden bad weather conditions during flight. Snowstorms and fog reduce visibility, making navigation and landing difficult, even increasing the risk of collision with treacherous high mountain terrain. Suppose an aircraft unexpectedly encounters an in-flight emergency. Despite harsh weather and a skilled pilot successfully landed on the roof of the world. At this point, the problem passengers face is altitude sickness due to thin air. If not detected and given first aid promptly, this condition can lead to death. Not only do aircraft face difficulties flying over Tibetan airs, but the harsh conditions here also result in an extremely low population death. The total population as of 2023 is 3.65 million, meaning less than 3 people per square kilometer. If an aircraft flies over this land and unfortunately encounters an idiot, it would be very difficult to receive immediate assistance. In summary, flying over the Himalayan region is not at all easy for aid. Therefore, airlines often choose to fly detours to ensure safety, even though the distance may be much longer. Lack of infrastructure. With rugged mountainous terrain and harsh climatic conditions, this area poses significant challenges for building and developing infrastructure, especially aviation facilities. While airports and radar stations need to be located in flat terrain, Tibet has steep slopes and rugged topography, so there are not many suitable locations for building airports. Therefore, airports here are constructed at very high altitudes, along with unpredictable weather, dense fog, and frequent strong winds. All of these directly affect pilots' visibility, aircraft takeoff and landing capabilities, and flight safety. Additionally, radar systems and air traffic control equipment can be disabled, were unable to operate safely in an emergency situation. If an incident occurs while flying over this area, pilots will face many difficulties in finding a safe landing site, thereby increasing the risk of aviation accidents. On the other hand, communication systems between aircraft and ground control stations are also limited, leading to risks of communication loss and lack of coordination in emergencies. The scattered population and low population density in Tibet also affect infrastructure development. With terrain mainly consisting of mountains and valleys, Tibetan people live scattered in remote areas, making it difficult to build transportation routes and connect infrastructure. Moreover, rescue capabilities and emergency support provision in this area are very limited, thereby reducing the chances of saving passengers and crew. Furthermore, constructing and maintaining runways and terminals in high-altitude mountainous regions requires significant technology and cost. The rugged terrain not only makes airport access difficult, but also complicates equipment repair and maintenance. For all these reasons, the roof of the world has very few airports, and they are all located in high, narrow terrain areas. With the unpredictable weather of the plateau, it is sometimes very difficult to access these locations. Among them, the first airport built in Tibet was daunting. It was completed in 1956, located at an altitude of up to 4 in mountain town of Daunting County, about 93 kilometers from Tibet's capital, Lhasa. This airport was served by a 4,500 meters gravel runway and required constant maintenance due to frequent strong winds blowing away. Therefore, flights had to depart around noon and before afternoon to avoid gales. In 1956, when daunting Airport was newly completed, the Aviation Il-12 and the Convair CV-240 were the first aircraft to land here. This event was considered a miracle, breaking the curse of a no-fly zone. Nevertheless, this place was still too dangerous to become a permanent airport for Tibet. Later, daunting Airport was replaced by Lhasa Gomgur Airport. It is located about 45 kilometers south of the autonomous region's capital. Since its operation began in 1965, this airport has been upgraded multiple times in 1994, 2004, and 2021. With 4,000 meters runways and 3 terminals, this airport serves about 4.5 to 5 million passengers. This is not only the largest airport in Tibet, but also one of the highest airports in the world at an altitude of 3,570 meters. It is surrounded by mountains ranging from 5,362 meters to 6,100. Additionally, this is also the most accessible airport in Tibet, as it was built on a wide area south of the Garlun-Sangpo River and near the entrance to the Nanyang Valley west of Raglan. Thanks to such a favorable location, it makes road transportation easier, with a modern transportation system of tunnels and highways nearby. Furthermore, Tibet also has Kondo Banda Airport, which was inaugurated in 1995. After being damaged by weather, the runway was repaired twice in 2007 and 2013. This is also the world's second highest airport at 4,334 meters. It has a very long runway of 4,500 meters and a width of 45 meters, while also welcoming 400,000 passengers. Tibet also has one of the world's most difficult to access airports, which is Nishi. As the third airport in this region, it was put into operation in 2006. Located at an altitude of 2,949 meters above sea level, while welcoming about 120,000. This airport is surrounded by the rather winding Garlun-Sangpo Valley and lies in the southeast of the Tibetan Plateau. The area also features mountains over 4,000 meters high, with clouds and fog covering it year-round. Aircraft must navigate this narrow and winding valley to land. Therefore, on average each year, there are only about 100 days of favorable weather for the airport to operate. Ningxi mainly is also the airport in China with the most difficulty ensuring on-time takeoffs and landing. Next is Narragansett Airport, which began operations on July 1, 2010. Becoming the fourth domestic airport in the autonomous region. Located at an altitude of 4,274 meters, it is the world's fifth highest airport with a 4,500 meters runway, serving about 120,000. Additionally, it is also the most suitable airport for those wishing to pilgrimage to Tibet, as it lies just north of Lake Manasarowar, facing Mount Kailash. Furthermore, Tibet possesses another airport, which is Shigatse Peace. This airport officially began operations on October 30th. It is located at an altitude of 4,317 meters, ranking third in the world. Additionally, Shigatse Peace also has a terminal covering 4,500 square meters and serves about 150,000 passengers annually. Moreover, Tibet is planning the construction of a sixth airport named Nagpur Daring in Nagpur County. Built at an altitude of 4,426 meters above sea level, it will become the world's highest airport, slightly higher by 15 meters than Daunting Airport in Sichuan. It can be seen that China has a total of 5 of the world's highest airports, with 3 belonging to Tibet and 2 to Sichuan. The country has extensive experience in constructing such projects, and the construction of the new airport is likely to commence. Over time, China has continuously upgraded infrastructure in Tibet, aiming to tightly integrate this region with the rest of the country. In the 21st century, the authorities have upgraded 2 old airports and built 3 new ones, thereby completing Tibet's civil aviation network. The goal of the next development phase is to open direct flight routes from this region to previously, daily international flights from Kathmandu, the capital of Nepal, to Lhasa, the capital of Tibet, took about 1 hour and 30 minutes, covering distances, but after the pandemic, these flight routes have not fully recovered. Currently, there is only 1 direct flight from Kathmandu to Lhasa, operating only on Mondays, Wednesdays. On other days, flights between Nepal and Tibet require a transit in Chengdu, making the flight distance much longer, with a total time of up to 18 hours, which is 12 times the normal duration. Security issue. Tibet, the autonomous region of China, has always been considered a hotspot for security and politics. The prolonged tensions related to the autonomy of ethnic minorities, including issues of religion and culture, have made this a sensitive area. Moreover, it borders Xinjiang, an even more unstable region. This not only affects political and social life, but also creates significant risks to aviation security. Tibet is also located in a highly sensitive border area. To the west is Kashmir, where China, India, and Pakistan are in dispute. While to the south, the two populous countries frequently confront each other. And often, the Chinese military encroaches on the land of Bhutan, of course, not to mention that part of Tibet also borders Myanmar, the country always mired in chaos. The instability in these relations could increase security measures in the region, including airspace restrictions. In special cases, the Beijing government will establish no-fly zones over Tibetan territory for national security reasons. These zones are likely to include airspace around military bases or politically sensitive areas. This means that not every area in Tibet's sky is safe to fly over. Therefore, flights in this region are mostly domestic within China. Although Tibet faces many challenges from its terrain and harsh weather, tourism here is experiencing explosive growth and is considered a sunrise industry. In 2023, the Tibet Autonomous Region received 55.17 million tourists, an increase of 83.7% compared to the previous year, including 110,000 international visitors, while external tourism revenue in 2023 reached $9.35 billion, a 60% increase compared to the same period last year, accounting for 27% of the It can be seen that China is opening up Tibet to tourism, but they still impose many restrictions on foreign tourists, such as requiring a special permit, not allowing independent travel but requiring group tours. Even at some locations, there are stricter regulations. For international flights from Kathmandu or domestic flights within China, tourists must still comply with all these procedures. Besides aviation, tourists can choose road or rail to enjoy the majestic scenery of Tibet. In choosing the train, the shortest journey from the mainland through this region can take nearly 21 hours. In addition to the aforementioned means of transport, for those who love experiences, choosing a road from China to this region is also a good idea, as you can then admire picturesque landscapes with rivers, cliffs, hillsides on both sides of the road, and dangerous curves. Currently, there are 4 road routes from the mainland to Tibet, with 2 of them starting in Sichuan and Yunnan provinces to the west, and 2 routes starting from Qinghai and Xinjiang to the north of Tibet. It can be seen that this mysterious land with its pristine and majestic beauty is always an attractive destination for those who love exploring nature. However, harsh natural conditions, along with infrastructure limitations, make flying over this region extremely difficult and fraught with many risks. Therefore, airlines have chosen detour routes to ensure passenger safety. But with the continuous development of technology, perhaps in the future we will witness aircraft flying over Tibet's skies more safely and efficiently. They will also design specialized aircraft for highland environments, such as using more powerful engines, extending runways, or even designing specially improved aircraft wings to increase efficiency. What do you think about this issue? Please leave your comments below within 5 minutes so everyone can know. Hello and see you again in the next video.